Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. As the ages of being young have been extended up to the age of 50, I'm more than in a good position to be member of this panel. In the morning, we're able to speak up about artificial intelligence, and in the last years, we have been talking about AI. We are talking about this as something new that was indeed defined in 1956, but it has some ups and downs in the last years. There have been an increase due to technological circumstances about this topic. In this panel, as it was said before, we shall be talking to young researchers and university professors who has been going through the use of a responsible use of artificial intelligence, exploring some ways to use artificial intelligence applied to economic growth, to people lives enhancement, to technological advances, and of course, to give it responsible ethical use. So in the panel, we shall be assessing different perspectives, and we also have a professor who is invited to have a virtual, online participation, and two in-presence professors. We are planning to have topics analyzed like regional cooperation, as well as speaking about the relevance of young people at present times and how to make possible that the academy, the business groups, researchers, civil society might be having a joint artificial intelligence agenda for the Caribbean that enables us to make progress with equity and sovereignty, as has been mentioned before by prior speakers in the welcoming remarks. So, without further ado, I would like to ask the first question to the members of the panel, to Roberto Cedeño. And in the case of the University of Havana and the Faculty of Computer Sciences and Mathematics, I know they have had some experience on achieving an active participation of young people in the topics we have been mentioning here. So my question, how from the university is the students have been given the possibility to use artificial intelligence for development and research. Good afternoon, and thanks a lot for the invitation to this forum. It's totally true what we were saying, that artificial intelligence have been mentioned for the first time for decades now, from in the year 2020. And GPT market, it has been reintroduced again in the way they have been used. What changed? It changed that the opportunity of having artificial intelligence is closer now. And anyone who's able to read and write on those who have access to digital possibilities are able to see the importance and relevance of artificial intelligence. Young people, of course, are the one to use these technologies, and from the university as a leading and training entity of that knowledge gives young people the opportunity to be much more involved in all this. In the mathematics and computing sciences in the faculty in the University of Havana, we have three pillars. First, we have to know and functioning of artificial intelligence. We need to know how the algorithms are created. We have to know the design of artificial intelligence. And third, we have to have a responsible use of artificial intelligence. The first challenge we had, and the challenge we still have, was to integrate artificial intelligence with our curricula in the University of Havana. We have two careers which might use artificial intelligence, data sciences and computing sciences. We include in both careers the artificial intelligence assessment, but those are now the only careers we have in the University of Havana. So we have to include in other careers in the university, also artificial intelligence. So we have to analyze all that because the way of acting, the way of thinking change. So those tasks of compiling information have changed. Interaction is different now with artificial intelligence. Now we have a lot of possibilities to be faster, to be much more expedite. So we need to include artificial intelligence in the careers or in the subjects where it is really needed. In some subjects where students are to create their own situations and solutions, we are using artificial intelligence. But on the other hand, in some other subjects where we need to prototype, or the artificial intelligence is a tool that brings the students closer to daily life. And today we have the possibility to give students projects that might be using artificial intelligence and to be applied to daily life. Another situation in which students are using artificial intelligence is in research, in doing research. Doing research, trying to find in the state of the art with the studies combination exercises is also recommended to have AI. So it's important from the academy we teach how to assimilate artificial intelligence, mainly because they are to understand artificial intelligence as well as the algorithms. Those are no the but artificial intelligence is much more attractive, good or bad, is the data, the information we are trying to find and use it for. We also find limitations, of course, in artificial intelligence, but we need to know those limitations and advantages to be able to use it every single day. We need to find the problems where we are to use artificial intelligence and what problems are not in the need of using artificial intelligence. As part of the development or the inclusion of artificial intelligence, we in the university have some training courses for different kind of audience. For students, for instance, some students that also are fostering social projects, trying to include, and this is a world, I might be wrong, and I know this is a world of men, but we would like to include women as well in our projects. In the senior high school, we also include women, I mean the girls, in using artificial intelligence. We also have tailored made programs and artificial intelligence programs in the University of Havana, in the eastern part of Havana, of Cuba. Sorry, we have some of our teachers training some other professors, students, and specialists on how to professionally and responsibly use artificial intelligence. We also have the human participation in using artificial intelligence. We are teaching people how to use big quantities of data and how to use the information, how to use the copyright. And after all this assimilation and understanding, we also insert our students in our research lines. Just to mention an example, since the COVID time started, the students have been combining scientific work as well as on-the-job practices, and we have project of artificial intelligence used in medicine for cancer studies and also in other courses for artificial intelligence. And we foster not only the study, development of artificial intelligence, but we use it in our daily life. And particularly, we included in the University of Havana generative kind of programs uh, to include local modules, and the MS for the learning and teaching of the students. And of course, I have to mention that in the University of Havana, in the Faculty of Mathematics and Computing, we designed the first generative model in Cuba. The name is Cecilia, and I'm not going to talk about that so much because I have a colleague who's going to be speaking about this on Friday. But this is another contribution done from the Academy. Thanks a lot, Roberto. In the Academy, we have a lot of challenges, and we have challenges in the learning teaching process. We have challenges in the use of artificial intelligence in the evaluation process and also in the training of our teachers so they can use artificial intelligence in teaching their lessons. Now we are going to change on the context, and we shall be listening to Shergaun and Roserie just to ask him, how have you been able to use the artificial intelligence and other emergency technologies and innovation in the Caribbean?
Right now, I still am the CEO of both Optronics and RifBid. So I guess I can speak both how Optronics does this and how RifBid does this as well. So, one second. So with Optronics, really, we were founded in 2020 with the mission to accelerate technology growth across the Caribbean region. And we took a two-pronged approach to doing this. One, we we empower businesses to help build the technologies that they need to help drive innovation in the region. And also we empower the persons that can build these technologies to do so. So just to expand on how we've done that. In building these technologies, we work with a number of companies across small and medium enterprises as well as government agencies to build those solutions that they need. So just for one example, we've been working with this genetic testing company we've helped them build a digital platform where they are currently leveraging AI and patient data to do a pre-screening of individuals to see how their genetic markers combined with some of their medical data can help with the early assessment with non-communicable diseases. I mean, that's just one example of how some businesses in the Caribbean are building these innovative technologies, and we at Optronics are helping them. On the empowerment side, we have done a number of training programs with youth across islands in the Caribbean region. So, for example, we partner with organizations like the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, NTRC, the OASIS Commission, where we've hosted a number of training programs specifically in AI and digital technologies that we've seen that have produced these students that are today now helping us build these digital solutions that will build this silicon forest in the Caribbean region. And we call it the silicon forest because we believe that we in the Caribbean can grow something akin to the Silicon Valley, but we must be able to pull together academia, the private sector, government, and bring those institutions together to really have a successful ecosystem. On the other hand, like I said, apart from building those solutions for businesses, we at Optronics build our own digital technologies where we leverage AI. So, for example, one of the businesses that spun out of Optronics was RifBid. And really, RifBid was started because we recognize a $60 billion problem across the world, which is that over $60 billion worth of government contracts go completely unanswered each year. Why? Because there are various problems in the procurement process for not only on the supplier side but on the public agency side as well. And we recognized this problem maybe a year ago, and we started to do some customer interviews. And the more that we dug into the problem, the more that we realized that this problem was a massive problem where we saw that AI could have a really strong impact on not only streamlining the flow for these public agencies, but making the process more transparent and more efficient as well. So what we did in the first iteration for our MVP, we started with a simple iteration, a simple integration for suppliers where we focused on leveraging AI to make the process simpler for suppliers bidding on contracts. So for one example, we started scraping contracts from a number of places, passing it through our AI models, then synthesizing it in a way that is important or only the relevant information comes out for the suppliers, and then they're able to easily bid on those contracts. And then after we built that MVP and we started having some more conversations, what we realized is that this specific problem that we were tackling had interest from not only the region, but persons internationally as well. So for example, we were speaking with a representative from the World Bank who manages procurement in the Caribbean region. And what he was telling us was that our estimate was that maybe 20% of procurement processes have inefficiencies because the process itself is not followed in terms of compliance. And you are saying, according to their data, is way higher than that, maybe over 50%. And that is one area that we see our system RifBid being able to ensure compliance not only on the supplier side, but ensuring compliance on the public agency side as well. So after building that MVP, RifBid was one of the first companies out of the Eastern Caribbean to receive pre-seed funding from the second largest venture capital accelerator in the US, Texas, to help develop this solution. So we continue to develop this solution, and we've integrated AI into a number of the workflows to really help streamline, for example, the solicitation, the evaluation, making those processes more robust for these public agencies. And what we see the future of RifBid really being is, and we've continued, even from the early days where we started building RifBid, we maintained that we built it on top of the model context protocol to ensure that it was agentic in nature and that all the modules that we've built can be used or reused in other applications as well. So what we really see the future of RifBid being is this agentic infrastructure where it not only is able to help you with your procurement process, but is able to provide procurement insights or procurement intelligence for government agencies. So, for example, if you want to conduct a procurement process for a specific project, you can ask RifBid, okay, if I want to conduct this procurement process, but I want to ensure that I want to use suppliers from this specific region, how does this affect my cost in the future? Or how might this affect the number of persons that I have applying to this specific contract? So just intelligence like this allowing agencies to make more informed decisions. And we really believe that, RifBid can help not only the Caribbean region, but globally as well, help streamline procurement to really help get a lot of funding to where it's needed most in the hands of the people. So that's just some examples of how we've been doing that across both Optronics and RifBid as well.
Muchas gracias. Sí, realmente son.
Thank you very much. And these are important issues that make sure the development of alliances for us to provide solutions and sovereignty in different countries. It is not only in the Caribbean region, but also in the world. Now, Christopher Derrell is going to take the floor, so he's going to speak about another perspective in relation to AI. And I asked him to talk about how can you harness policies, AI policies that we were talking about in the morning in relation to the public policy registration. There are 500 that are registered in that important public consultation register that we were talking about in the morning, how they can serve to promote sustainable AI and to diminish problems in relation to AI that they have also mentioned by different speakers.
Thank you. Just want to make sure that you're able to hear. Okay, thank you. Thank you as well for the invitation. It's a great privilege to be part of this. YCDI, just to give a bit of background, we are an organization that is focused very much youth between 7 and 25 content creators on the digital that they're into rather than content consumers. So not just persons who are using tools, but not just Instagram influencer, but the future of the net. So one of the big things about that is that our program has reached citizens from not only in America, but across the world. Up to date, we've reached about 25 countries across. It's really from Trinidad to Bangladesh. And that was all the brainchild about Leanne. Now, the reason she started Youth Can Do IT, the reason we're still around today, she recognized that there's a shift that we need to have as Caribbean youth, which is that we can actually do the same things that Google, Facebook, Apple product. And so when it comes to policy, we have a very big opportunity to work with Oxford University to look at how it is that we can come up with different framework for interaction for kids online. Now, that study was specifically about metaverse. You're a technology fund, you know what that means. But the metaverse was a digital space that you can interact with other persons in, and you have an interaction. And so our discussion was about how to safeguard this digital space and allow students in young and vulnerable ages to have safe interactions with persons you may not have met in real life. So out of that came what we call ethics in the metaverse. It was a policy or a guideline about how you can have ethical interaction in these digital spaces. And the beautiful thing is that it applies not just virtual reality space, but to anything that they're doing. And so what is important to us is that as we look at the policies that we're going to create in terms of artificial intelligence to software in our region, is that we have to be careful to be reasonable and strict. What do I mean? While we agree to adopt policies that are proposed from other nations and we're going to tweak it for ourselves, we have to be very careful not to literally Google someone else's policy and think that will apply to our region in a practical way. Jamaica is currently going through that kind of learning because we put in place our Digital Protection Act, and it's very closely related to the GDPR that the EU has put in place, right? And it's also similar to the UK GDPR. But actually, in some areas, the act is more strict. And so what you're finding is that this is affecting companies that are still in the growth or just learning to operate online and digitize their business. By taking a policy that was built for a nation that have been ahead in terms of their technical. And so one of the big things that we know is that we can't just take a policy and apply it to the region. Otherwise, we will probably, for lack of a better word, strangle our own innovation before it's even happened. And we have to include the kids themselves or youth themselves in the policy writing. As in, there are many policies. But the best policies, and based on the work we do, the best policies can you include the students themselves in the policy writing. And you might hear that and you say, okay, but if you include writing a global AI policy or a Cuban AI policy or a Jamaican AI policy, they're just going to ask for things like how to have more fun or how to do more, game using AI. But what we found is that some of the very issues that we are concerned with as adults, the kids already have on their mind. For our program, we had 21 students between 10 and 17. And the issue they raised, they're concerned about data protection. They're concerned with how their data is being used. They also raised autonomy, meaning none of them read terms and conditions before they sign software. None of them. And so they were also concerned about how can they make that more for younger audiences? Can they turn terms and conditions into a video? Right? Something that will make them more engaged with the terms that they're reading. And so one of the things that we took away from that in terms of policy development and guideline development is that these kids are smart, right? They're just little humans. And they have a very big desire to contribute in things they are going to have to adopt when they grow up, because the policies are going to affect them much more than to us. Especially those between 7 and 17, growing under these policies for AI development. So I think my first clarion call is making sure that the students, the youth, are part of the policy writing. All they need is guidance while we're making how it's going to happen. And that is one of the mainstays of our program, which is that we make sure that anything we're teaching, whether it's web development or writing, is relevant to the current day. And we're not trying to teach old technologies that they will not be able to use to thrive in the future.
Thank you. Gracias. Bueno,
Thank you very much. We have all talked about the importance or the value of data to get a proper use of AI, a proper use and ethical use for countries. So, this panel is about to end, but I would like to know how you have faced the challenges to protect data in every country, in the country you reside. So, Christopher is going to take the floor that is online, so you can speak a little bit about these data issues.
Yep, no problem. So I hope this is a little better. I'll start with a story. As part of that student program, we had the students create an avatar of themselves. So if you don't know what an avatar is, it's a digital representation of yourself that you can on the platform. And so what we basically saw was a split in how kids actually made their avatars. The boys, very quickly, they would put on some rubber duck on their head and swing around them, and then they're happy, they're fine. But the young ladies, the young women at the time too, because what they were trying to figure out which hairstyle really represented them. And because of the tool that we were using to teach, they were not representative hairstyles for how they didn't have the hairstyles that they actually had. And so they had to do the closest representation. I share that to say that the tool we're discussing is going to have the who's creating the tool, right? Whether good or bad. They have built-in bias. And opportunity we have in the region is to make sure that we train our own model, our own tool, so that when we're ready to select the voice on video AI, it has that inflection when they speak, or as the Jamaican on the voice, because we have that rich set of data. So the thing that was a bias becomes this strength because focused on actual issues that we have in our region, rather than one stop everybody on the platform. So having those solutions, and that can only we are training our models on very good data, and garbage out. And really quickly, I think it's important that we're careful, flexible with the policies in place. So if we realize that the policies around the data are actually stifling innovation in the Caribbean, I think it's important that we are quick to assess it, review it, check whether it's working or not. And then there's nothing wrong with the thing if we realize we've made a mistake. But the biggest problem would be if we stick to the policy, therefore we're going to hold 5 years, and then we find ourselves in 2030 behind the rest of the students because we didn't get it more quickly.
muchas gracias.
Thank you very much to the speakers. So please, can you talk about data, your perspective, or what are the challenges we have in relation to data, the use of data, its structure, the protection? So can you speak about this? I'm going to talk about two issues on data. The first one is related to the region, particularly in Cuba. We have a lack of internet data. In our case, we have been a digitization process, but from the point of view of data, it has been not well implemented. For example, the historian's office of the city have digitalized all these historic data. They have pictures. These registers are digital, but they are not present in AI. But we have to take a step beyond not only the visual representation, but also the written representation in AI. And the other issue is who's the owner of data to which data respond to, in which these models are implemented on. So the lack of culture, if you do not have data, you lose the way you communicate, the culture. So a way to represent and present all the good things of a region is by using data and also to provide solutions that enable to understand the local cultural heritage. But also we have to understand these matters. Thank you very much. And to close this issue on data,
I think one point that he touched on, and I guess I want to reiterate, is that we have in our process in digitization, we have to think about what the future might look like and how that data can be used in the future. So one example where he touched on with the museum, for example, and then digitizing their photos, a problem that we came across just recently with the GIS in St. Lucia, where they now want to go through the process of digitizing their video records. And they've started the process where they started to upload these clips from the tapes or whatever. But the issue is that you have all these tapes and you don't have a really easy way to access them because they're not easily tagged. So, for example, you might have clips which are about Cuba, for example, the beaches. They show they show different features in those clips, but you're not able to find them very easily because it's just a clip, right? There wasn't that thing that thought about, okay, in the future, how might we, okay, we're digitizing, but then what does that really enable? How can we use whatever we're digitizing in the future? And that's something I think we need to be very cognizant of today, is that whatever steps or whatever processes that we implement or whatever features that we build today, we're not just building for today, we're building for 10 years down the line. And I know sometimes you have that difficulty between balancing between what should I prioritize today and what do I prioritize in the future. But there needs to be that constant thought of how do we enable a future that is accelerated, right? Because what I keep saying is, in the Caribbean region, we are aware that there's a digital divide between us and third world countries. And if we are to move at a velocity that we can say we want to catch up, and they themselves are also constantly saying, we need to progress, the only way that you can catch up to someone who is already moving faster is for you to continue to accelerate. That's the only way. And if we aren't, having that foresight of 10 years down the line, what can we use or how can we leverage our data that we have today, then we will never catch up.
Gracias. Bueno, sin datos.
thank you very much. And without data, we're not going to have AI. That is why we have to carry out a proper data governance. So data is not owned by anyone. So this is for a better life in our region. And to close this session, in 3 words, very short words. You are going to describe how we put in the hands of young people and the peoples of the Caribbean AI. What should we do? The first word is infrastructure, data, and human resources. So we should train human resources and provide measures in relation to AI and provide infrastructures. And without data, we're not going to get anywhere.
A silicon forest. A silicon forest because that is the flywheel that we need to continue building the infrastructure in the Caribbean. That infrastructure then feeds into the that infrastructure can be monetized, and once that is monetized, it encourages persons to get into the field. As we have more persons coming into the field, it's easier to build that infrastructure. We need to build a sustainable flywheel, and that is the way to do it by building a silicon forest.
Gracias. Christopher.
Christopher?
I would say, not hearing? Okay. So pipeline. Pipeline is the first word because it's important that the next generation understands the flow between where they are and being excellent developers or excellent online creators. So it's not just I code and then I'm going to create. It's how do I get from starting to code to becoming one of the top developers? And that's one of our big focuses. The other is micro solutions. I think we're looking at a time in the future where the goal of building AI solutions is not necessarily just to become a unicorn for the company. It's just to solve the problems that are around you. So if you have any issues within your house, you're trying to figure out how to purchase groceries, you can build your own solution that solves personal problem or a community and causing impact rather than trying to build $1 billion company. And then the last thing would have to be not just teaching how to prompt, but why it's important to understand the critical thinking behind what solutions you're prompting or what you're creating, so that we don't end up with persons who know how to prompt but don't know why they're prompting.
Muchas
Education,
gracias.
pipeline, and micro.
Muchas gracias. Yo sumaría alianzas.
Thank you very much. I would say also alliances and collaboration networks that we have been building in this youth forum. Thank you very much.
Un aplauso. I enjoyed this panel because of how it was comprised. We had someone representing academics. We had a youngster who is showing you how they are applying AI in business and solving problems and making money. And even though we had some difficulty hearing Christopher, for many of you who may not be aware, Christopher's platform or the Youth Can Do It program actually does a lot of work with the youth. And they actually do focus a lot even on girls. So here are my takeaways, los aspectos más destacados. From Christopher, what I got from him is that as Caribbean people, we have to be less consumers and we have to be more creators. Can't just keep on using without actually developing on our own. And that is something that I took away from Christopher. We heard about micro solutions, something that he also said. Just find the problems, the small ones, find the problems, find the solutions. You don't have to try to be a unicorn. When I heard Cedeño speaking, he spoke with a lot of intention. We can't just speak about artificial intention. We can't just speak about artificial intelligence, We have to ask ourselves, what are the data? Do we have the data? Are we collecting the right data? Are we applying this data? How are we learning from this data? And last but not least, something that we learned from Shergaun is that we can't be short-sighted. We need to be looking at the future. We need to be creating things for the future and not just now. So I just want to thank all of the participants and to our esteemed moderator for handling that very, very well.